One of the primary ways I've become fluent in Spanish is through a lot of reading and listening to books and audiobooks. I've read almost 3 million words and listened to a little bit more than that. That's, give or take, 727 hours, or a combined total of almost 70 average length novels. That's a lot of reading, and almost all of the books that I read were translated into Spanish. I think that translations get an unnecessary bad rap, and today I'm here to argue about why I think that translated works are good, actually. My main point and the main argument that I want to bring up today is very similar to the same reason why I think that audiobooks are frequently better than the original book. And there's one main reason for that: the narrator. The person who reads the book is so incredibly important to the success of an audiobook that it's essentially make or break. That's the only thing that really matters. A good narrator can bring life to a work and show you things that you didn't even think about before. And a poor performance can totally ruin the entire experience of a book, even if you originally liked that book a lot. And I think the same goes for translators. Not only do they take a story and craft it into a new yet the same experience, but they frequently do it in a way that's invisible. You don't even think about it. When it's done well, it feels like the story was built for that language. I read a lot of Brandon Sanderson books, which we'll touch on why in a moment, but only 2 of them have I read in English. The rest have been completely in Spanish, including the entire Stormlight Archive, which is his really large magnum opus big fantasy series. They're very long books, and despite him being from Nebraska, I can't imagine what the story would be like in English. It's in Spanish for me. Everything seems to work. The made-up words fit really well, the characters speaking and existing in Spanish just make sense in my mind, and since I'm listening to it in audiobook form, they speak with a Spain accent, which makes it sound sort of interesting and ancient. I frequently hear sentences that make me wonder what it would even be in English. I can't even think of a way to put it. And in the case of Sanderson, one of the biggest complaints I hear from people is that they don't like the way that he writes. I've heard lots of people complain about his prose, which is totally fine. Everyone is welcome to their own opinion on art, obviously. But translations, if done correctly, can fix that. The original author is the main ideas person. They're the driving creative force behind the work. And the editor is frequently the person that helps the story come to life for the general reader. And the translator is almost like a cultural layer who tweaks the story and rewrites it for a different language. When we read in translation, it reveals to us an alternative vision of that work formed from an entirely distinct linguistic system. Language is never static, and a book can always be otherwise. When translators do their job correctly, they're invisible, and that's why I think they're so often forgotten about. From my point of view, growing up in the US, I would hear lots of adults talk about these famous books. I'd hear about things like The Alchemist, The Little Prince, Crime and Punishment, The Odyssey, The Diary of Anne Frank. All of these books are famous translations, not to mention authors like Jules Verne, who were very important to a lot of young readers. After all, translations are made for natives by natives, which is the exact definition that we put on native content, yet somehow don't consider translations as part of that. Another really popular example of translated works is anime and other dubbed TV shows. There are tons and tons of anime fans who adore certain specific dubs. If you don't speak the original language of something, subtitles can be a little bit flat. But a well-done dub can transform a piece and give it in its entirety to a new person or a new community. A good dub is arguably even harder to pull off than a single book or audiobook translation, since there's a lot more people involved in a dub. So hopefully you can see my point about why I think that translators are so critical to this and why their work is worthwhile of your time. Another reason, especially for me, is that translations allow me to consume exactly what I want in the way that I want. I read almost exclusively fantasy book series, hence a lot of Brandon Sanderson, and I've only found a little bit of that written originally in Spanish. It was very, very good, but reading translations allows me to read the kinds of books that I want to read. I'm not particularly interested in historical literature, which Spanish has plenty of. Reading books in translation allows you to read as widely as you'd like to read. I essentially only read in Spanish with the occasional book in English, which means for all intents and purposes, I'm a Spanish speaker when it comes to choosing books that I want to read. And since I pretty much only read fantasy, then if translations didn't exist or I didn't consider them worthy of being read, then I wouldn't be able to read what I wanted to read and there'd be a massive world of literature closed off to me. I might not even be reading at all. And this is why native speakers of tons of languages all over the world read, watch, or listen to translated works all the time. Atomic Habits isn't a bestseller in every country because everyone speaks English everywhere, but because it was translated and is still interesting and relevant to pretty much everyone. Sure, it's totally reasonable to get into a language in order to understand original works in that language, but that's not for everyone or even most people's goal. I learn languages for other reasons, and something that I like to do in general is read. The original language of the work just doesn't come into the equation for me, especially when translators are really good at their job. And the final reason I really am a fan of translated works is because it allows you to revisit things that you already know well. This is just really useful for language learning in general. Just a couple of weeks into learning Czech, I started listening to and reading the Harry Potter series, because I know that series so well. I only knew a couple of 100 words maybe, and yet I was still able to follow along with the story. At this point, I'm like 75% of the way through the 5th book and know most of the words on every page. Plus, being able to revisit your favorite TV shows or books or movies is a really good way to combine nostalgia and relaxation with language learning. I remember a time when I wasn't feeling particularly inspired to study Spanish, and I had some stuff to do around the house, but I couldn't just throw on a YouTube video because I wasn't that good yet. So I put on this Spanish dub of The Terminal with Tom Hanks, and I had a fantastic time. It's sort of a cheapo Netflix dub and isn't really of that artistic quality like other translations. They only brought in like 3 voice actors and seemingly only reviewed the script a couple times, but it was still really fun. I knew the story, and after a little bit, I hardly even thought about the fact that it was a dub. It can be tough to switch to a dub if you've already started in a different language or you're just not used to them, but you will warm up to them eventually, I promise. Okay, I'm gonna wrap things up here because I don't want to ruin my point by rambling for too long. Let me know down in the comments, that's below the like and subscribe buttons by the way. Let me know what you think. Do you enjoy translated works? Do you think that I'm wrong on any of these points? Do you have any counterpoints? Have you been inspired to try something new because of this video? I look forward to reading your comments. Good luck out there, and as always, happy immersing.
I'm here to drop some knowledge, listen up with your ears. I got a language learning method, gonna make it crystal clear. Call Repo the game changer, gonna blow your mind. Immerse yourself in media, fluency you will find. Repo.